Oh my god, holy shit.
Okay, I'm starting up the... Hello, sultry sluts, degens and cucks, demons and angels, and everything in between. I'm your host, Disaster, and welcome to the Degeneration Podcast, episode 35. Wow, 35 already. The podcast for the degenerate generation. Here with me is my charming co-host, Mandato. Please introduce yourself. Wait, what's below her? Sheesh. Oh my god. Jesus Christ. Hopefully. As for announcements for today, hmm, I've been a little behind on a lot of the stuff that I've been having to do, so I'm not entirely sure if all of the anniversary stuff is gonna get done, but hopefully that'll get done. And yeah. I just have a few more things I need to do, and by a few more things, I mean everything, because I haven't started. Slacker, hey, you
It's
shut your bitch ass
okay.
up. You don't know.
It's fine.
You don't know what I've been through, man.
It's fine, Noel. You can get me that art eventually.
I'll kill you. I'll end your. Okay. Never mind that. Do you have any announcements?
Yeah, my only announcement is I have no idea when I'm gonna stream, and I'm sorry for that. Because genuinely, it literally just happens randomly.
Pain.
If I feel like doing it, I'll do it, and I'm sorry, I can't really control it. Sporadic.
Pain.
Hippo.
Anyways, here is our guest, Grimgram, the only Knuckle-V you guys know.
Would this be the third time?
Yes,
Third time,
it
yes.
would be. Third time's the charm.
Yes, it is the third time we have congregated in such a way.
However,
and this is the second time this week that I'm way past the time where I'm usually asleep, so this is going to be fun. Because today we're going to be talking about something which is several months old news, but we only got around to watching it like last night.
And it is worse than I thought it was going to be.
Hi, Guardian Spice.
Hi, Guardian Spice.
I wanna make a disclaimer before we start this. We're not just gonna bash it for the sake of bashing it.
Oh no.
Like, we're not just going to bash it for being woke trash. Although
that's
it
just
is woke
one
trash.
of the things we're gonna bash it
okay,
for.
The problem is that, like, to criticize it, you literally don't need to do that at all. Because it's fundamentally flawed on a lot of levels. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, but like, honestly, I like it.
It's only nice with friends. If I wasn't watching it with friends, I'd want to fucking. I want to be doing anything else.
When I first saw the clips of this show, I knew this was going to become a cult classic.
A cult classic?
Yeah.
To who?
I don't know.
That's true. That is a little confusing to me.
Well, for us, first and foremost, I feel like I want to watch this annually with someone every year.
No. This situation is a cult classic. It's like me and what's it called? It's like me, Kyle Froppy. You guys know who that is.
I don't know who that is.
What anime is it? If her flag breaks. Like that's the same shit. Where it's so bad, but God, is it fun to watch with somebody?
Like,
because it's so shit.
That was one of the best anime that I have ever seen.
I hate comparing everything to The Room, but this is really like The Room, where it's like it's bad, but that's why you like it, and that's something. It's like I can't say I hate the show because it's genuinely fun. Like just to get excited for all the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I do, however, want to say something, right? The reason why If Her Flag Breaks was so shit is because the light novel has 16 volumes, and the anime got one season where it tried to fit in about 5-6 volumes.
Yeah.
So the reason why it's so shit is because it's just go. They hit the ground running.
I mean, the problem is, it's just this doesn't even have any restrictions on it.
They tried.
What is the restrictions on High Guardian Spice?
Right.
Like nothing.
Like, it sounds like the opposite of what you said, where it's like instead of trying to compress everything, it's like they had so much time, but they used none of it.
That's true. They literally did introduce a problem and then solve it 4 episodes later, huh? then like that's disconnected, by the way. It's not like
Yep.
they took that time to do so. They introduced it, it's gone, and then suddenly it's back again.
Yeah, they
And now we need to
introduced it
talk about it.
and then ignored it for 4 episodes.
Yin has
You're
a
right.
26% pick rate. Anyway, continuing.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
What the fuck? Oh my god. No, I'm, as a person who's a very like, who's big on like power systems,
Sure.
this show pisses me the fuck off because it simultaneously is nonsensical and simultaneously the most like generic magic system ever.
So I actually spent a lot of time thinking about this today, preparing for this podcast, because
Why?
this was a topic I felt I needed to discuss in detail, because I am a nut for artistic philosophy.
Okay.
So
All right.
I spent a lot of time poring over the magic system and why it is as bad as it is. And I sort of came to this conclusion, and for this I'll be using one of my favorite settings of all time and a really good example of world building and Disaster. You already know what this setting is.
There's
I
a
think I do
few-
too, because you literally talked about it.
I talk about it
On the
a
podcast.
disturbing amount now that I think about it.
There's a
Whoa,
few,
I wonder
but,
what the setting is. Whoa,
And it's like
that's
it's not my
crazy.
only favorite setting either. It's like Numenera
Yeah.
has an amazing setting as well, but like let's
Like-
just use Eclipse Phase as an example for now, because it's
Mhm.
probably the best I'm aware of.
You
So-
literally talked about it for 2 hours. I know enough to.
I know. Yeah, I apologize. I'll make this quick though.
No, it's
So-
fine.
Okay, stop interrupting. Fuck. So,
no, you're good.
sh-
Oh my.
Epic. All right. So
There it
anyway,
goes.
now that we don't have a guest today, I get to talk about pick and ban rates for ADCs, and shit, he's back.
I don't care about the pick and ban rates of ADCs.
Why not?
Anyway, Krim, your mic's hot. Let's hear it.
Why is Samir's ban rate so high?
are
in
you
her
sure? Because it
rings?
sounds like you're busy talking about something else far more important.
Nah, no, please save me.
Her
All right,
ban
so-
rate's bigger than her pick rate.
With Eclipse Phase, it starts with a very basic premise of transhumanism, and you can tell, especially if you read the lore. By the by the way, plugging my Eclipse Phase lore series coming soon.
Oh yeah.
You will see that like it starts with that basic premise, and and whoever wrote it logically thinks, okay, well, where does this, like, what is the implication of transhumanism? And it goes to some really cool, interesting places, like people can sort of treat their bodies a lot like cars, where they can mod them and make them look ugly as hell and really tacky. Also, like, it's like, this is a world where you could basically cover your body with like naked anime girls, and it's just like a fashion trend.
Yeah.
But
What is
and-
that fashion trend called, huh?
I don't know. But then you get to like the really weird, awkward implications of it, like two siblings are able to sleeve themselves into the body of a 10-year-old boy and an octopus and engage in some really kinky sex. And it's like, that's incredibly bizarre, but it's a consequence. It's the natural consequence of being able to switch your body and not being constrained by taboos, which ultimately have no more ground to be on anymore because of the circumstance. And it's fucked, but that's the thing. It's not like just positive stuff. It shows you the depth to which something goes, making you think about it in a lot of different lights. But the point I'm trying to make is, it starts with, let's look at a simple concept and see how far we can take it. Let's see how extreme we can push it, and how it can radically alter a culture. High Guardian Spice, on the other hand, it does not think that way. It just thinks, how can we use magic to push the narrative to create specific setups that look interesting but have no substance to them. Because, like, you would expect that in a magic world, gender identity would be a lot more, like, nuanced because of transformation magic, but they never mention that, and when they do, they mentioned gender, like, transition magic as its own very specific thing, as if it's not a form of transmutation or polymorph.
I didn't even think about that, but you make a really good point. Like, at the point where you can just shapeshift entirely,
Why does
gender just becomes so subjective.
And that's another thing
I
I've
didn't
learned
think
from
about
Eclipse
that.
Phase as well, but that's the last time I'm going to mention that.
Yeah. Because
But that's the thing, it's like
what's it called? Anna's character, Hentai. She just has both. And but she's also an octopus.
Yep.
And it's just so outlandish and out there that we
Yeah.
just can't question it anymore. Because
But
that's
the
just
thing
part of
is-
the universe.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like the world building explains in detail and very rational reasons why such an absurd concept happens. And that's what breathes life into the world. And this is why I have a problem with fantasy, because it's easier to explain science than it is to explain magic. Like, with magic, it's simpler to explain to children, but to anyone with any remote background in science, you say, well, what is the elemental plane of fire? Isn't fire a combustion reaction? Also, is carbon dioxide part of the air element because it's got carbon in it, so it shouldn't be earth element as well? And once you start thinking in those terms, it breaks apart.
Yeah.
It depends. There are certain, like D&D, for example. D&D did it well because the fire plane is all made out of magical fire, and that is all there is. It's literally just fire. Like there's nowhere to stand. There's no sky. It's just an endless amount of fire.
Okay, fire without oxygen.
Yeah, it's magical fire without oxygen.
See, and that's the thing. It's like, it's magic. I don't gotta explain shit.
Right. But there's also a spell called Continual Flame that works underwater. It's
Again,
second level spell.
Like, whatever. I already said my piece.
It's like, well, I get it. Because magic has a lot less to explain.
Yeah, magic feels very Band-Aid-ish, but there are systems of magic which do a really good job of making it feel like it isn't just a Band-Aid contrived solution. Like, Fullmetal Alchemist is probably my favorite magic system because it's one that incorporates a lot of real-world science into it. In order to be an alchemist, you need to have extensive knowledge of chemistry, and especially if you're going to the field of medical alchemy, you need to have an extensive understanding of biology and microbiology.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I think like the best magic systems are based on the like historical beliefs of magic.
That's
Like
I
alchemy.
agree with that. I agree with that concept. Like D&D ritual magic, like
Yeah, I think you're
alchemy.
right.
Yeah,
I think you're right with like in order to make magic feel believable, you have to put yourself into the position of people who believe such superstitious crap.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you can divorce yourself from that, you can make magic feel real, but I guess I just can't. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the trash fire known as High Tumbler Spice.
Right. The point being, you feel more comfortable whenever magic can be explained, like not explained by science, but like when it works with science.
Mm-hmm.
But some magic systems just don't.
But at least they work consistently.
Exactly. That's
this magic
the
system doesn't.
The problem with magic systems, the main problem with magic systems is because it doesn't work with science. If it doesn't, right? It has to make sense in its own logic. It has to have its own rules and its own logic.
Yeah, it has to have its own kind of consistency.
If it doesn't, then there's no point.
Like there's laws of magic.
The writers can do whatever they want.
Yes, and this is why it's important to start with a concept first and then build around that, again, like in Eclipse Phase. Because by exploring the concept, you also explore its limits, and through that, you can create scenarios that do not feel contrived.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I was watching a review on HGS, and I was introduced to a phrase for the first time, which, considering how interested I am in like narratives and writing, I'm surprised I didn't hear about this phrase. It's called the hand of the author. And
Oh, Deus Ex. No, that's different. Man over machine.
so the hand of the author is when people say in writing, never show your hand, they're referring to the hand of the author. And what it essentially means is, I guess showing the hand of the author would be the equivalent of going to Disneyland as a kid and seeing the guy dressed as Mickey Mouse take the head off the costume.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
I think I like the phrase "don't show the magic behind the curtain" more.
Yeah,
But,
and that's
like-
basically what it is. It's like,
But it is
don't,
the same thing, right?
like, all stories, when you think about it, are contrived. But
Exactly.
it's about hiding the contrivity and making sure that no one's able to see it. And this is also advice that works for being a dungeon master too, because the best kind of railroading is the one where the players think that they are making the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, basically they're making decisions that don't matter. But with HGS, and I especially found with the healing fountain scene, that was just from beginning
Oh
to
my
end
God.
contrivity.
The fucking
Like-
healing magic and it just changing how it works based on the second.
That too, but like, so think about like the setup to that. There was like the goblin things, and as a reward, they just give out a friggin' dragon egg, like as if they know it's gonna be useful later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be useful later, only because they smash those diamond golems directly in front of the door. So that's like, what are the odds of that happening? And again, most stories are contrived, and like most stories involve situations which realistically are unbelievable. But it's being able to distract the audience enough that they don't think about that. So they're trapped in this fountain room, and they spend time talking to each other. Again, they wouldn't be spending this time talking to each other and getting to understand Time's motivation if it wasn't for the fact that they wouldn't be stuck. So, and here's a question: why didn't they just? And we mentioned this while we were watching the episode. Why don't they just use magic to clear the rubble?
And or heal her in the first place. But
Yeah.
The problem with High Guardian Spice is, as you say, but more concisely, that everything that happens, if the saying everything happens for a reason, right? But it seems like everything in High Guardian Spice happens coincidentally,
Yeah.
which coincidentally
Or
allows
as
things to
I
happen.
would put it, everything happens for a reason, and the reason is the hand of the author.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
if you see that as the reason, that's how you know you're showing that your hand.
The problem is, like, inside of the rules that they set,
Of
these
which they
things
hardly.
shouldn't be happening. Like they quote unquote set very basic, very not very good rules, but very basic rules.
If I
It's
may
okay.
quote
Old
High
magic
Guardian
is
Spice.
slow. Old magic is slow and bullshit, and new
Except-
magic can do fucking anything.
And I
And
quote
then
Except they
as
don't
soon as
stick
they
to
need
that.
it to
in
do
this
something, it does
instance,
nothing.
If I may,
Go ahead.
with new magic, you can do anything.
They literally fucking said that.
That is expressly stated by a professor.
By the way, I just want to talk about that professor in particular because
Oh my fucking god.
Well,
That is-
yeah.
you
Oh my
I'm not
god.
sure we need to talk about the psychopath professor.
well,
Yeah.
hold on, because I think that's an example of like trying to make a good character, but it comes out wrong. Because I understand the
Yeah.
idea. It's like you want a Dumbledore-like professor who's like whimsical and like kind of a kid at heart, but it just comes off as, why the fuck are you a teacher? Why the hell are you like?
Just child endangerment.
What was
Just
she
the
meant
character.
to be
Not just
whimsy?
I think so. Like, she seems like the kind of person who's like a kindred spirit who like fucks with people just for fun. But like,
Mhm.
there's a difference between like playing innocent tricks on people and literally poisoning your class.
That's the thing, is that it wasn't she was, how do I say this? She was introduced that way. She was introduced with poisoning the entire class. What? That's some villain type shit.
Yeah, like, and I like, and I've heard people debate this as well. Was she really gonna poison them? Was that really the intent? Or was that just like, was this just a temporary spell that could be reversed?
Based on what we've seen from the high school, yes. I fucking think if they didn't figure that shit out, one of them at least would have died.
Well, the thing is, I guess aside from the cave, I can't think of anything they've done so far that's like legitimately
Swinging axes.
at test dummies. Like
No. I mean the swinging axe.
Like
the obstacles.
the part of the
obstacle course.
obstacle course.
That's the thing, though. Parnell
It's-
literally jumps into the fucking bottomless pit and comes out because he kind of realizes, and you see as he goes through the course, he basically realizes all these traps are fake because they're not actually going to kill us because they'll get fucking sued or some shit.
Well, no. The bottom of the floor, completely fine. That was part of the trick. They literally had giant metal blades swinging that almost sliced parsley in half.
But were those really metal or were they made of rubber or something?
Well, yes, because you can see as the blonde fuckhead completely domes his head into it. Yes, it was metal.
Or sharp rubber.
Sure. It
Sharp.
made the metal sound.
Like the daggers in fucking episode 2.
Oh yeah. Just bendy sword. I don't even know what I can say about that. It just was so weird. You crafted sword, bam, whip sword but it was like 2 inches long.
But it's like, even then, that's not how metal works. It has to be like really thin.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's like it's like a deflated balloon.
You made a dagger out of spaghetti. Like, what the fuck?
You made an Italian trench bayonet.
Italian sword.
An Italian trench bayonet
Oh
for the for the millionth battle of the Isonzo River. Okay, but yeah, so like I said, I feel like that was a teacher who, I understand the direction they were going for. It's just they made the teacher too edgy. But it's not just about endangering your students. She was legitimately like even the things she said would be something that would probably get her fired or like get the school sued for punitive damages.
I mean, probably.
Like, she sees a student struggling to understand basically the curriculum, that student being Sage, and she, instead of like trying to be accommodating and like nurturing, she's like,
why are you such a loser? Is
basically it's like, what kind of professional educator says that?
The only type of professional educators that say that are math teachers.
Like, not
because they make fun of you for fucking using the wrong process.
Okay, so this isn't a story that happened to me, but it happened to my brother and sister. They had this teacher, and my brother said that this guy was like absolutely savage. And a student asked, "I don't understand this," and the teacher said, and I quote, and my brother quotes, "Well, if you don't understand that by this part of the course, you should just take a shotgun and blow your head off."
What the fuck?
The thing is, I have never seen a teacher like that before.
I don't know. I just fucking, what the hell? What leads a teacher to say that kind of shit?
Like, probably he does not like his job.
Like, you just gotta, like, you're in the wrong field, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you. You're in the wrong field.
Probably, but like the teaching positions he wanted were already taken or some shit.
Yeah, something like that.
But yeah, so that said, there's not a lot to say about most of the. Well, I guess we could talk about the tiefling.
The tiefling?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Are you talking about the?
Horny teacher.
The ethics
Ethics.
teacher.
Oh, wait, tiefling.
Yeah.
Because she
The-
has red skin and she's like a
Well,
demon.
The demon?
Tieflings are like half demon.
Right.
That's
Okay.
that's her whole D&D
And she's
lore.
probably not a full demon, is his assumption.
Okay.
Well, I mean, okay.
The
Do you want spoilers? Because we do actually meet a demon later on in the show, like an
Yeah.
actual demon.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm assuming tiefling.
Oh, okay.
I will say, I kind of like the ethics teacher because one, it does kind of throw you in a loop that the ethics teacher is literally infernal.
Yeah.
That is kind
Like
of fun.
That, but it's like it's so weird because she starts teaching ethics and it's like her own moral ideals, and it's just like, what, what was she saying when they were about to go into the cave? She was just like straight up just scaring them and
And-
being an asshole.
Who was that one kid? Xenia, I think her name was. Like, she was hyperventilating because she was understandably afraid to die, and like that was a character I empathized with because it's like, I struggle with anxiety myself, and I would probably act in the same situation.
Mhm.
But like, and what really makes it sad is that by abandoning this, she basically expelled herself, and that's something I really like empathized with, because it's like I have had times where I was too anxious to finish a lab, or like I didn't feel as though I was get properly educated or properly understood the material I was being tested on, and the teachers did nothing, and they just like poor Xenia.
Yeah.
I just want to hug her.
God, fucking. I don't know. It's still like an entirely different world apart. Like they were literally going to like realistically some of the people in that cave would have died. Like realistically,
Like, is
that
this
just would have
Krieg?
happened.
Is this Krieg?
What?
Are they training to be the death corpse of Krieg? Because this is like how you train a Krieger from fucking birth to be a lemming.
I mean, yeah, but like they were on some like Ruby type shit. It's like even the people in Ruby had guns.
Yeah, the key point to like the people in Ruby though is one, they chose that obviously, but two, they are trained extensively and before it even starts, told, you know, this is all gonna fucking happen to you. So here is this super hard entrance exam. If you don't pass it, that's cool. That just means that you shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, like with Ruby, it's justified. It's like established very, like right away. This is a world full of fucking monsters. This is a world where,
right. Yeah. That's
Like,
one of the
yeah.
biggest problems. We don't know what they're fighting.
like, we can assume it's your generic fantasy stuff that some uncreative DM comes up with, like, okay, it's going to be a necromancer or a band of highwaymen or like a orc war band or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. One of the biggest, like, I wouldn't say one of the biggest, but one of the most common criticisms I've seen is we're not told what a guardian is. And I just, like, I understand what they mean from a world building perspective, but it's like a guardian's just an adventurer. Maybe with a little more on the paladin side because they have vows. But like,
Yeah.
like they're adventurers. It's like, this is the most bog standard generic fantasy world. Of course they're going to be adventurers, and you don't need to think about it too much because it's bog standard fantasy. They're adventurers. After this, they're probably going to become a bunch of like traveling vagrants who murder like quote unquote evil creatures for money. That's the adventure of life. They're going to be crawling into dungeons. They already crawled into one in one of the episodes.
Yeah. It just okay. Ruby gets a lot of shit, but I feel like this is the showing that okay, but we could have had a worse Ruby.
Honestly, I think that Ruby does a lot of really good with what it has.
Yeah.
I
Especially
think
with
that
the lack of funding in the beginning.
actually, I think one of the biggest problems with Ruby, ironically, is like their the creativity there at the beginning, the setup, the world. It's all not that much as compared to a lot of like obviously not like normal ass fucking bottom barrel isekai, but it doesn't have as much creativity as say god, what's a fantastic show? Doesn't have as much creativity
Re:Zero.
as Re:Zero is a good thing, yeah, sure. But Re:Zero does play into some tropes, so I'm trying to think of something completely creative. It plays into the tropes well because it like is supposed to show how like actual genuinely like fucked up those tropes are. But whatever. Super fucking creative. Eberron. The campaign setting.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Wait, Everon?
Eberron Last War.
Never heard of it, honestly.
Okay.
Nope.
All right.
I
Okay.
can't tell you, Chief.
One. Okay, one sec.
God, I will say, hi, Ruby does do a
Hi,
good
Ruby
job
Spice.
of.
Hi, Ruby Spice.
Ruby does do a good job of telling us exactly what they're fighting. First episode, we see the main antagonist of the next few seasons.
Actually, we literally do see Cinder in the first episode, huh?
Yeah, we see Cinder, we see fucking Candle motherfucker.
Candle motherfucker?
Torchwick. We see
Torchwick.
we see Neo too. Like we see all the main antagonists first 5 minutes of the show.
Wait, yeah, no. She is with him, isn't she? And then she
Yeah. They're
she
in the
does her
plan.
normal. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing where like I'm just reminded of like one of the most important things I understand as a DM, which is by the end of the first scene, the PCs need to know where they're going. They need to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They can't have them by the end of the first scene, they have to have a direction. It doesn't have to be the final direction. The resolution can change, but they just need a clear exit to the scene and the transition into the rest of the adventure.
To be fair, I think this is something that has gotten really better over recent years because of our Lord and Savior, Matt Mercer. Every single one of his campaigns starts, all three of them. Like, I'm not saying he's actually God, right? Because that's stupid.
I don't know anything.
And
I don't know anything
quote-unquote.
about. I don't know anything about Critical Role. All I know is that TG hates it.
Okay.
And they hate it not because it's bad, but because a lot of people start to look at it and immediately thought Matt Mercer is clearly the way a DM should be, and thus every time players or dungeon masters aren't doing things the way they're doing on Critical Role, I'm going to be a jackass and micromanage them.
God.
That's not what I meant though.
So it's like when I hear Matt Mercer and I hear Critical Role, I just sigh just instinctively because it's like, oh no, I don't want to go here.
I think the lessons that we can draw from Critical Role are many. However, obviously he's a flawed person and a flawed DM. I just think that he's a lot better than a lot of people. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should hold everyone to his fucking standard when he literally spends a lot of time professionally writing for it for money.
Yeah, like there's
also he has a lot of experience in creative like writing.
Yeah, and I'd say like, well, there are some standards that Dungeon Master should like adhere to. There are a lot of things which are very much subjective. Like for me, for example, I can't improv that well, and so I try to rely on the theater of the mind. I try to rely on the theater of the mind more than I should, or just like I'll just think about something if the players ask, but if they don't, it never enters my mind.
Sure.
But we're getting off topic. Why don't we go back by talking about probably the most controversial thing about High Guardian Spice, and something which has, I mean, unsurprisingly, people have different opinions about this because it's controversial. Like, an issue isn't controversial. A lot of people forget what it means. Controversy means nobody can agree on it. There's a lot of different opinions.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay,
a lot of
so
people
So where are you going
think,
with this?
so we got a hint of it because, by the way, what episode are we on? We're on 8 now, right? 8, 9?
Yeah,
I
I think
we're on
so.
8. So I'm going to drop a spoiler here, and it's something you might have seen coming. Well, not really, but actually, if you watch the next episode, you would definitely see it coming. So, Snapdragon. Do we know this
Yeah.
character?
Yeah, the fucking masochist. There we go.
The character you say ripped off,
Ripped off Little Witch Academia.
like
Look.
Angela, I think her name is. So,
Maybe.
here's
But,
the
like,
thing.
It just looks like a Little Witch Academia character, and just
it looks
like-
like he doesn't really belong.
yeah, he just looks so much different than all the other characters.
Yeah, and I've actually heard people point out his iris looks completely different than every other character, period.
Yes, that was
So,
the first
okay.
thing I mentioned when we
Okay,
first started the show.
But anyways, I'm gonna drop this spoiler bomb for you.
Don't do it.
His voice actor is trans. Guess why?
Because he changes
So,
to a
in
she.
in the next episode, you'll begin to see the evidence that he's not your average boy. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but
Oh, the opposite. Okay.
but I will say, soon afterwards, I think in the 11th episode, we get this like important scene where he ends up having a discussion with Professor Calloway about how he hates that he can't be masculine. And Calloway very quickly starts to bring up transition magic. And this is something
Of
where
course,
people...
because he is the transition magic implemented.
Yes, but like, so a lot of people like Snapdragon because of his trans arc, because he's a character who actually has this genuinely interesting arc.
Okay.
But other people look at this and immediately their heart sinks because they think, is he really supposed to be trans? And I'll just say this now. At no point throughout any of the episodes does he show any expressive sign of having gender dysphoria, because Calloway's Wikipedia definition of what being trans is, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
the literal dictionary.com
Yeah,
definition that he gave,
where he says, "My body didn't feel right for me." That's gender dysphoria. At no point does Snapdragon actually vocalize that. At no point does he ever seem uncomfortable with his body. What he's uncomfortable with is his own masculinity.
Yes.
And we
Okay,
see a little bit of it. We see a little bit of it in like the obstacle course episode with the conversation with Sage, who says men don't talk about their feelings, but he does. So what does that mean? And again, I won't go into too much detail, but stuff happens in episode 8 and 9, which touch upon not gender dysphoria, but a sense of masculinity.
So to be clear, it's a female to male trans, right? For Snapdragon?
Male to female.
Male to female. Okay, so
Male to female, but like the voice actor is female to male, or
I think it is male to female. I think
Okay.
that's the whole point, because it's like that's his character all along is
okay,
female.
so
But
the transition arc is like the transition. They haven't transitioned yet.
yeah,
Gotcha.
so but the argument I've seen from a lot of reviewers and commenters, and which I agree with, is like the idea that he should be transitioning is based off of stereotypes about gender roles, and not about him actually feeling like he needs it. And perhaps that's the point. Perhaps in like a second season, God forbid.
Well,
But
didn't
perhaps
they
in
already confirm it for the
did they?
second
Oh
season?
God, did
I
they?
thought they did.
I know that Ray Rodriguez is working on other shows which actually look more like anime and might be more competent. I'm gonna be more open-minded about those. But I don't know if they ever announced a second season. I hope not.
I thought they did, but maybe I'm tripping.
But anyways,
Crunchyroll is silent on High Guardians by season 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Never mind.
But anyways, so going back to this, there's a theory is that in season 2 he does take transition magic, and I would actually applaud the writer for coming up with this if this complete headcanon theory were to be reality, and that is he transitions but he feels even less comfortable, which would show that like hormone therapy is not the only way to go, and just because
Yeah.
you're feminine doesn't mean you're less of a man, which the show does not seem to be going in that direction at all. Like, spoilers, he is very feminine and he has a feminine side.
Mm-hmm.
But like, and this is something I personally hate, because I know someone who I'm very close to who identifies with his birth gender, male. But when I first met him, I didn't know he was a guy. And I asked him, like, once he told me, like, what do you have any pronouns? And he says, I don't care. And I said, okay, well, do you have any plans to transition? He says, no, I'm a guy. I just like cross-dressing. That's it. I just like being feminine sometimes. So
That's fair enough.
And that strikes me because, and we'll see as we watch the rest of the episodes, it strikes me that like they're basing his entire arc off of gender stereotypes, which sounds very detrimental to the trans community, which is hilarious considering that the character who wrote the show is female to male trans. That's the brain parent of this. Again, there's the hope that the second season was planned to be a lot more smart than face value, but at face value, it feels, first and foremost, it seems sexist towards men.
It is. It very much is.
Well, okay, so there's like the obvious like strawman male antagonist.
Oh my god, that guy.
But
this is so
Aster.
fucking annoying.
Base Sigma male Aster.
Aster. Fucking.
But not even that. Just the very quickly saying men don't talk about their feelings, and then Snapdragon taking that to heart and thinking he's not a man. It's like,
yeah,
fuck you. There's a lot of men who struggle, and we know a guy, you and I, who we will not mention, but he's
a victim of that.
Instead of talking about his problems, and I tried really hard to have him open up to me about his emotions, he said, I'd rather drink.
Yeah, the guy, he's a very, like, that's the problem, is that those stereotypes actually exist, and they're very bad societal stereotypes that, unfortunately, people like this guy end up falling victim to.
Like, it's times like that make you realize, oh yeah, women aren't the only ones who have insecurities and social pressures. It's just that it's harder to talk about because it's a lot different.
Yeah. Well, that's
It's
the thing,
different.
is that the social pressures are about not talking about it.
I think
Which makes
one
it
of
harder.
the main problems, and this is obviously a generalization,
Mhm.
is that with men, with women, they're a lot more open to other women and like speaking more emotionally about that. However, with men, it's hard because of societal norms and pressures
Because you
to
don't want to,
speak about your it shows
because
weakness.
you don't want to show your weakness, because as a man you are expected to be the emotional anchor for everyone in your life. You have to be the one with your shit in control so that other people can lean on you. So you always have to, like, and it's not a pride thing. I think part of it is pride, and like you have to do this because of your own pride. But I think a lot of it is because as a man, a lot of people are expected to rely on you. So you're expected to be there and be that support.
Yeah, and I think as a society we're kind of working on it,
We
but
are.
it's
High Guardian
it's
Spice isn't helping.
it's coming
I-
along
Actually, you
slowly.
know what? You know what? I would argue High Guardian Spice is helping because we're having this conversation about it.
Well, yeah. I honestly don't think it's a bad thing that High Guardian Spice was created,
I think it's
because
better
it
for something
sets
to have a message and intention and fail so we can talk about it than
it's
to
an
be
Yeah.
over.
offset. It offsets the balance, which is a good thing. Because
Yeah.
if we just have, oh, banger, 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 banger all the time, like, it's not going to mean anything if we don't have anything to offset the balance. So I
Still,
think this show sucking is fine.
That is
like
a really
the
interesting.
whole trans arc is Mm. Sorry, the whole trans arc is like something that it just irks me so much, and I know I'm not the only one who does. I've heard other people talk about this and discussing it with themselves, and like they can't tell if Snapdragon is supposed to be trans, if he's supposed to be non-binary, if he's supposed to just, like, it's such an ambiguous thing, and I think it just creates so many stereotypes, or not stereotypes, but like it spreads misinformation about what being trans is. Because one of the biggest criticisms I've heard against trans people is uh, the argument that you can't know what being the other gender is like if you have never been that. You won't even know what it's like to be another person of the same sex because you have been nothing but yourself. That sort of I think, therefore I am approach of you are an individual and you can't compare yourself to others. This is, by the way, why gender identity is far more complicated than being gay.
Yeah.
Because being gay is very simple. Being
It's like,
trans,
oh, I like this set of characteristics, and
like,
they just so happen to match more with mine.
yeah, like it could be argued that being gay is objectively about sexual preference. And even then, there's like so much nuance within that that you can't, oh, someone's in chat. Hi.
Hello, eggs. Thank you for the
We're,
follow, by the way.
we're
Hey,
talking
friends.
about complex socio-political issues. Don't mind us.
Yes,
It's
please mind
Anyways,
us.
how dare you?
Going back to this though, being trans is a matter of identity and what is the definition of male and female. These are deep philosophical questions that are very difficult, if at all possible, to answer. So, and this was all build up to what I was saying. So the big argument, one of the biggest arguments I've seen against transgenderism is that the whole movement is based off of sexism and stereotypes. Like, you act girly, so therefore you are a woman in a man's body. Meanwhile, you could be girly but still be a man. You could still be feminine but still have masculinity. And this is why people argue that gender doesn't exist and it's all based on biological sex. And this is where we get into hair-splitting arguments.
It's it's a very hair-splitting argument over what specific words mean in subjective contexts. It's like,
Yes.
yes, you can feel very feminine, but you don't feel like you should be a female. or you could feel very feminine
Yes,
as a
and this
male
is
and feel like you should be
I
female,
just
and
want
it's
to
just
say
the
I just
very
want to say as
distinctive
well,
things.
this is why I have this concern for the trans community, and that is it's moving too fast. It's being accepted too fast because people don't understand that they just see it like another flavor of gay, essentially. And like there's a reason why there's a T in the LGBT community, and we could add more to that acronym if you want, feel free. But fundamentally, it's not sexual preference. It has nothing to do with the B, or the T.
Well,
It has to
it
Sorry,
do
is
with
no,
the
your
it has
T.
to do with
identity.
the L, the G, or sorry, fuck.
It is.
It
Well,
has
yeah,
to
I
do
get
with
what you
identity.
mean.
Like
Yeah.
there's overlap, but they are fundamentally two separate things that could overlap but don't have to.
Hmm.
And I think people just accept this the same way that they accept being gay without understanding this goes a lot deeper. And this has like ethical, philosophical implications. And if you really want to get autistically close to it, we could argue the ethics of making hormone therapy free, like having that being covered by a health plan.
Me, sir, but
Maybe
as
insurance.
I have
Maybe.
taken both
I'm not
philosophy
sure.
and ethics, I believe that this would be a very interesting conversation.
It
Would that
is
conversation?
I'm
it's
kidding,
very
though, because like we'll completely isolate Noel.
But conversation. Good.
Conversation about ethics. I
now
see.
I do want to stop talking about this though, because I feel like I've already reached the limit of my depth, and I do not want to say anything really stupid, but I just want to say this.
Hmm.
The people who are against being trans argue that it is a movement of sexism. And I am not taking sides on that. I think the conversation is far too nuanced for me to give my own personal opinion. I think that's something better left to experts, but I will say this, the show does not do the stereotypes any favor.
No, not at all. The
And
actual like messages it tries to push are not very good. they're kind of ham-fisted, and they seem, for a very subjective thing that is gender identity, it is very like it tries to like hit a broad idea when gender identity is a very subjective thing.
it's very subjective, and that's again why it's such a complicated thing. Like being gay or bi or pan or whatever, because there's so many definitions now, why bother even trying to classify it anymore? Like I've I don't think I've seen anyone, maybe one guy in my own generation who is straight, and everyone else is just different flavors of pansexual. Like it's like I can find men hot if they're girly enough. I can dig a femboy.
I mean, yeah.
I can't do a lot of pudge and a lot of hair, but I know a lot of people can. I know a lot of people like a bear, and that's the thing. You begin to realize it's less about, well, it still can be about physical sex, but it's also about like aesthetics as well. And it's
I'm attracted to femininity,
but you could still,
regardless of like
yeah,
male or
but
female.
and regardless of all that, you could still argue though that it's objective, just very in depth. Like you'd need a big
Yeah.
checklist, but it's still an objective checklist. Gender identity is a lot more subjective. It's a lot
Mhm.
more based on personal views and opinions and ways of seeing the world. So that's what makes it so complicated to talk about.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the whole like more and more nowadays, people are just like mostly more often bi or like pansexual or instead of straight, is just because this idea of like very straight and narrow gender roles is starting to become a
Here's
little
the
bit
thing.
more
Here's the thing.
unraveled and like gray
Here's
into the lines.
Here's the thing. Did you know that in ancient Greece and Rome, if you were to explain to them the concept of being gay and straight, they wouldn't understand it because everyone was just a little bit gay.
I mean, that's fair enough.
So it's like these are concepts, they are very much social constructs.
Yeah. entirely.
Now I've said so many Tumblr buzzwords in like the last half hour.
I mean, yeah, but like
You must stop with the Tumblr buzzwords
Tumblr
before you
buzzwords.
kill us all.
We're gonna be invaded by the Tumblr.
Well, I like it though, because the thing is, it's like when you hear the Tumblr buzzwords, you just roll your eyes because they're never explained to you. Like the concept of checking privileges never made sense to me because the people who tell you check your privileges, they never go into detail of what that actually means. What is checking it, and what does that benefit society by doing?
Is it based
It's
on what?
Exactly.
Checking what?
It's like it's just Big Red shouting in your face, and you're supposed to take this person seriously. And I hope that
It's like, all right, but what am I
Generation
actually supposed
Z-
to think about?
Yeah.
What am I thinking about?
I was gonna go somewhere with this before you took it somewhere else. Shit, I can't remember. But anyways,
Wait, what topic did I take somewhere else?
I can't even remember. Shit.
Shit.
But if we remember, we remember. But let's in the meantime talk about the other trans character in the show and why that is just so stupid.
Fucking Professor Calloway.
So
I just hate everything about him. His design. I like his design. I liked his design at first, and I was like, oh yeah, that seems like a cool character. And then he started talking. And then I slowly.
I will say I like his
hating
design. I like his design because it's a lot more toned down.
Yeah,
it's
a
like
lot more casual. And by casual, I mean like casual in the headmaster sense.
Even though he's not a headmaster, but it's like it's like he doesn't have some kind of wildly rioted colored hair.
Mhm.
It's like it's just black hair and kind of it looks like he needs to get a haircut soon.
He has anime boy hair.
Even then, not really. It's like bedhead hair. It's like the kind of hair I have right now. So it's like, and
For
it's
me.
like it's like he's not over the top, but he's not too bland like Sage's entire character design is. It's like he strikes a good balance visually, and I like that. It's like it's not too much, especially considering his character is a lot more chill than the rest, so you don't expect him to look like Elton John.
Yeah. Oh my god.
But
that's a thing, is that they could have, like, with the same idea, same story, same principle, they could have written him so well. Like, if they just didn't ham-fist everything and they just showed us instead of
like I said, I
telling
watched
us.
a lot of reviews, especially in preparation to this, and quite a few of them were like constructive criticism things where they say, let's redesign the show and see what we get. And they like go through, and even if they don't do that, like in like the clips that you see on YouTube of like the really stupid scenes, you will have, if you scroll hard enough, you'll find comments, like entire threads in the comments section where people discuss discuss these scenes and how they could be changed. And the most infamous scene in the show, the I'm transgender scene, was a good example of this.
Exactly what the fuck transgender means.
And we talked about that a lot last night when we went through that scene. So, and I'll just restate this point again. So, one comment I saw was, instead of saying I'm transgender, you could just say magic works in wonderful ways and just leave it at that for the moment, because like the audience is adult enough to understand and read between the lines there. We'll get into the tone shift of the show in a second as well.
That's another thing, is that they could have
We'll
said
get
that.
into it. We'll get into that.
It's such an he's such an interesting character that they could have had the next episode be entirely about that.
They could have.
Like the entire next episode could have just been a flashback of his like trans journey.
So that's one theory, but I brought this up again. So in that same comment thread, someone said, what if there was an entire episode where it's like they go on a field trip, something goes wrong or everything goes wrong, and they're basically stuck in this like hostile environment away from society, and Calloway, not thinking that this was going to happen, decided, I have another day before I need to take that potion to keep up the spell. and then just like in the middle of the night, for no particular reason, he just runs into the woods. The characters are concerned and follow him, and they basically see him on the floor, kind of in pain as he goes through the shift. And
Oh, it's
that
like
is,
transforming back.
yeah, and it's like
Mhm.
that is the the big reveal that this character is trans. We get like build up to it, and
Mm.
it's really dramatic, and it's at that point that you put in a commercial break, and then after the commercial break he can explain the situation, and that's something that you could do. You make an entire episode about it, arguably filler, but still good enough.
Still is important to the message.
And that's like something where it can explain it in greater detail without it feeling, and like they could do it in a dialogue, not in a lecture like they did, but like a back and forth between characters, like a I think Mandato understands this, the Platonic dialogues.
Haha, Socratic.
Oh, Socratic dialogues, sorry. Fucking, for all we know, Socrates was just fan fiction. He was just a fucking character
It was
made.
not fan fiction. He was
Oh my
real. He was Plato's master. Just because he didn't write anything doesn't mean he wasn't real.
Okay,
I mean that's another thing, is that in that same vein, like after that scene, they could have like the rest of the trip, he has to stay as a female, and he just kind of looks a bit uncomfortable. Like they could just have him kind of be uncomfortable in his own skin.
Yeah, they could have like subtle body language, or the way he speaks being
just
really
be like a lot less confident.
Unusual.
Like he's got like
He's very
chills
clearly
or
uncomfortable.
something.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
chills or like pain or something, but like the kind of pain that's not too bad, but it's just like the kind of pain where it's like it's annoying but not too bad. I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah,
But
because
anyways,
we always see him like super happy and cheerful, and so
It's
an
the
episode where
ones
he's just
genuinely
would be fine.
upset, sort of like
Yeah,
easily
like
irritable.
a big tonal shift, I think that would have worked so well. By the
Yeah.
way, quickly going back, Socrates is a Mary Sue. Changed my mind.
Socrates. Okay, Socrates is only sort of a Mary Sue because he
He
He was a freaking Mary Sue.
no. Okay.
To my knowledge, he has no flaws, but he was still put to death by a society that didn't like his message. A message that was, of course, portrayed in the best light possible.
Okay, you know what? I don't have a good reason as to why he's not a Mary Sue, but if I did, you would be like, that's a good reason.
I would, but you don't have one.
Oh my god, wait, that's the quote of that
That's
one guy.
Bruno.
Yeah, Bruno. My god.
But yeah, so
I don't have a reason you should leave, but if I did, I'd tell you and you'd be like, that's a good reason.
That's a good reason.
Yeah, but you don't. So cope.
Damn
Cope
it.
and seethe.
Mauled.
Okay, but anyways, going back to Callaway for a second, because I'm not
It
done
kind of
with
was. It's sad.
this. So going back to Callaway for a sec, because I don't think we're done with this. So
No.
there's this theory that's totally unconfirmed, and I would argue, while it somewhat makes sense, it's still baseless, and that is Callaway is a self-insert. And I think that's an interesting topic of discussion.
It could be.
Because
It is an
remember,
interesting
like,
topic of discussion,
the voice actor's trans as well.
regardless of whether or not it is true.
Also, can we
Because-
just talk about how the voice acting for him is just so bad. I just hate it.
I don't think it's that bad.
It's pretty
Not-
bad.
Like, I've seen worse voice acting in the show. It's definitely not the worst.
Yeah, but it's noticeable. Like, it bothers me every time he speaks.
But that's the interesting part, because, and this goes into why people think it's self-insert, because one, he looks like the creator of the show. Two, he's voiced by the creator of the show.
Yeah, it probably is at that point.
But that's the thing is, if we're going by that as being the benchmark for self-inserts, like, we could argue that, like, because, like, okay, so have you watched Mau Mau, Hero of Pure Heart?
I have not.
It's a good show.
Neither have I.
Mau
It's
Mau?
yeah, it's I would say it's definitely something more for kids. And if you don't like high energy stuff, you might not like it that much, but I love it. And it's an
I see.
example so the guy who wrote the show, he does the voice of the main character. And
Mhm.
he knocks it out of the park. He knocks out the ridiculousness of this character. And of course he does, because it's a character he wrote. He understands the way this character sounds in his head. He knows how to portray it. And that's what I find so interesting about you saying Calloway's voice acting is bad. But it also serves a good point. It's a self-insert, like, this is a character voiced by the creator, who is the main character of the show. But it's not a self-insert. Like, it's very clearly, this is a character with flaws, a character with insecurities, a character who is too bound in his own morals sometimes to do what's right.
Who?
Mau Mau.
Oh, Mau Mau. Okay. I think you said Calloway. I was like, wait, no.
Yeah, no. And so, and that just, I don't know. I can't say for certain, because it's like, well, because Calloway isn't a central character. Well, kind of, but it's like he's not one of the four main characters. So it's like, is it supposed to be some sort of self-insert, or is it just supposed to be like the equivalent of Stan Lee cameos in all the Marvel movies?
I mean, I feel like it has to be a stand-in or self-insert, because when it comes to like Stan Lee and all the Marvel movies, it's like it shows up for one scene. It's like, oh, ha, it's Stan Lee, that guy,
I
and
think,
that's the whole joke. But
personally,
this
I
is a
think,
whole character.
well, here's the thing, though, because as we've seen throughout the show, Ray Rodriguez isn't necessarily the best writer. So I'm wondering if it was intentionally meant to be like an Alfred Hitchcock or a Stan Lee cameo, but he didn't understand the principle of, this is a character who's going to appear a lot, so maybe this feels a little self-indulgent, or it'll appear as such.
Yeah.
That's the thing. By the way, so, and I learned this recently, the idea for the show has been around since middle school. That's when Ray first came up with it. And apparently, and I've only heard this from one source, but apparently the reason why it's so cringe is because the idea was written in middle school and basically shelved for all that time. So it's
It
like,
didn't evolve after all that time.
it did not evolve, and you said that it felt kind of dated, didn't you?
Yeah, I said they could have made this show like 15 years ago,
That's
and
the
it
thing.
maybe would have been fine.
It feels dated, but it also feels really cringy, like the kind of thing that like a young teenager would write, where it's
Yeah.
like, it's edgy in certain ways, but not in the ways that matter.
The problem is it feels like a predecessor to better versions of it, like Ruby,
Yes.
like I mentioned Ruby.
Yes, that's the thing. And I think that explains a lot of why the show turned out so bad, is because it's like, it's middle school writing from a decade ago.
Yeah. And like the fact that they didn't update it or like change it drastically in that entire time span and grew on it makes a lot of sense. Cuz let's look at one of my, like, one of the stories that I wrote back in middle school, Twisted and Divine. You don't know anything about it, but hear me out. Yes, I had this idea. Yes, it was really fucking cringy. However, over the years, Twisted and Divine has grown, and I've made more reasons for things, and I've expanded on the power system, and I explained why certain things happen in it. And I didn't just shelve it for 5,000 years and then made an anime about it. Like,
Yeah.
I actually thought about it.
This is, by the way, part of the thing, and I believe in a tweet Ray Rodriguez mentioned that this was a learning experience, not going into too much detail about it, but it gives me a sense of optimism because, like I said, he's already moved on to different projects. He's working on projects that look a lot more like anime. Uh, and I think one of those projects is it. It looks kind of like Legends of Korra, but it's very Mesoamerican, like very Aztec.
Mm.
And like that's an angle not a lot of people get to see. So this could be interesting, and it could like it's I hesitate to say I'm optimistic, but by the way, Ray Rodriguez has never been in a showrunner position, and as far as I'm concerned, has
God.
never been in the animation industry ever, yet was given his own show. Keep in mind,
Okay. So
Yeah.
we're pulling a God, what's his name? Who's currently the showrunner for? One second. It's the Doctor. Doctor Who. Showrunner.
you mean for like the female Doctor Who?
Chris Chibnall. Yep, Chris Chibnall.
I mean, that's another thing, is that as
And
much as I went into the show wanting to completely hate it, I don't hate it, and I wish this was a good show, because so much of me wants this to be a good show. For
it's
some
painful
reason,
because it's wasted potential.
yeah. Like, if
It's
they
like
just explained the magic system better, did some more context stuff, did some of the scenes better, I feel like I could actually enjoy this show.
So
The characters are cute.
Recently, and this is the reason why my interest in the show got sparked again, why I brought it up, and why you decided we're gonna watch this, is because Rodriguez made a tweet about this, or like a whole list of tweets explaining why it went wrong. And I doubt a lot of what he said. Like, he said it was basically a lack of budget. And I say, okay, I highly, highly, highly doubt that's the
With
be all and end all
Crunchyroll
reason.
backing it up.
So Rodriguez said it's got a lower budget compared to other Western cartoons, and he even stated, yes, this is supposed to be a cartoon. The creator stated, this is not an anime, this is a fucking cartoon.
Yeah.
Which begs the question, why did he approach Crunchyroll? Because apparently he was not approached. He approached them multiple times, apparently.
Yeah, like Crunchyroll. And with Crunchyroll backing your project, you didn't have the budget to make this a good show. Ruby was literally made by an online YouTube company.
Yeah.
First seasons were funded out of pocket.
Yeah, they were funded out of pocket.
They did not receive like a sponsorship from Verve. They weren't receiving Ruby money. It was just shit.
I won't say that the animation was amazing,
but
it was passable.
And
also I didn't find some weird fucking like frame glitches like in the show.
One of the biggest problems with Ruby versus High Guardian Spice is that both are sort of fan projects. But one is being funded by Crunchyroll, and one is being funded out of pocket by a very small studio. And look where it ended up. Both of them.
So going back to this whole Twitter thread thing, he blamed the fact that the studio wasn't unionized. Again, I highly doubt that was a reason. Interestingly enough, he talked about how like scenes were being written, or like scenes were being made before the script for the episode was even written, which that's happened before. That's not impossible, and it's not impossible to make a product out of it.
That makes sense that some of the scenes kind of fell out of place.
Like I've heard
how that was going.
I've seen like reviews that did like episode by episode reviews, and they talk about how certain scenes feel like they were out of order. Like this scene should have came first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might explain a bit of it. However, like Spider-Man 3 was one where they were basically doing the scenes as it was being written. And that was also something with a big budget.
Watch it. I need to watch that.
I don't know if that's a good movie, but I think it's
what is
Spider-Man 3.
Okay, it's notorious for being the worst in the original trilogy.
Oh, wait, Spider-Man 3. Oh yeah, we're not
the Raimi trilogy.
Okay, no. I was thinking something completely different. My bad. I was thinking of the new movie that just came out.
Regardless, so with this, I began to think about something which isn't in the animation industry, but I think the comparison is close enough. Anthem. That abomination, you remember it? Because I know a lot of people certainly don't anymore.
Oh,
I never played it.
Anthem. I love it.
I
I love
heard
it. I love it.
people really wanted that game to be good.
Because no. It's because it's cool as shit, but it's so horrible.
That was the game that taught me that when it comes to these kinds of things, there is a honeymoon period where you can't criticize it without immediately being attacked. So it's like you gotta give it breathing room first.
Yeah.
And that's what I discovered about this. But anyways, so Anthem was a game which had 6 years of development, and it was being made by BioWare, which meant being funded by EA money.
Mm-hmm.
So you have lots of time, lots of money, and it's not exactly like these are amateurs in the industry either. Well, some of them were. And I think that's probably why the game turned out as bad as it did, because I've done some in-depth analysis of it. I've seen like what happened on it. So aside from having to deal with the godforsaken Frostbite engine,
Oh god, Frostbite. Why not just use Unreal, man?
Because it costs money to license Unreal.
But it's worth it.
No, it's not, because you need to squeeze every cent out.
Squeeze every cent out of this shit. It's EA.
Because fucking executives don't understand how a video game
recreate.
engine works and how they can be wildly different from each other. But I digress.
Yeah, I mean, we don't use Unreal for everything, but like, if it's gonna be what it is, it's probably better to just use Unreal.
What was the other thing that we were talking about that was made on Frostbite?
Anyways, it's getting off topic though. Off topic. So, as
it's my podcast. How are you gonna say what the topic is, man?
Okay, we're going off topic on a tangent, which is already borderline off topic. So, as I was saying, aside from that, the other issue was the game had 6 years of development, but they were just flopping around with the concept for like 4 years before then. They didn't have anything substantial or solid other than a very, very vague idea for 4 years. So basically 4 years of procrastination. And then suddenly, oh shit, we gotta make this. And so in the last, I think it was 18 months, they had to put something together. Apparently the name Anthem was chosen a week before the reveal trailer at E3. A week before they decided on a fucking title.
Huh.
So...
Oh, right, you're talking about how Anthem, like, literally all that they showed at E3 was everything that they had completed?
That entire trailer was a lie. It was foundationally a lie, because they had nothing together by that point.
Yeah, like, they made that shit, like, trailer,
and you know, in early 2010, people were starting to get cynical to the idea of pre-rendered trailers, because like by this point enough people got bitten by a game which didn't live up to the pre-rendered trailer. So it's like, okay, these are just giving us very basic broad ideas. What's the gameplay like? So now we have an example of a gameplay trailer which is also fake. So congratulations, EA, you now completely ruined anyone's trust in this fucking industry. But I'm digressing hugely. The point of all this is to state this. Just because you have a lot of money and a lot of time and a team doesn't mean the product is going to be good if the foundation is shit. And here's the thing. Throughout this whole Twitter thread of Ray Rodriguez, because remember, that's the whole point we were going on this tangent in the first place. Throughout this entire thread, he does not take any personal responsibility for anything. He blames it on the budget and the time constraints, period. And even states that the bad writing was also an example of the budget. Meanwhile, he's been working on this since middle school, and he's even written you know that High Guard in Space was based off of a webcomic, right?
No, I didn't.
Yes, it is. A Tumblr webcomic. And
Oh wait,
I
no, you did mention that, yeah.
And I've only heard this from one source because one person actually bothered to read the webcomic. Apparently, that is bad and preachy and woke trash. But it's like, and this is the part where I want to hope Ray Rodriguez is better, but at the same time, a bad artist blames their tools, or like they blame something other than themselves. So it makes me wonder: will he, as an individual and as a creator, ever grow if he does not accept the consequences that he had, at least in part, something to do with this? Because I can see like the budget and time restraints explaining the PNG bread and
Yeah.
and the audio quality of our best boy Slime Boy. But
That is
other
fair.
than that,
And a lot of the
other than-
audio mixing and a lot of the weird smear frames. Like it
And, like-
just kind of looks like no one rewatched it over.
it's like they didn't have time or something. But I don't
Yeah.
think that's because of time constraints. I think that's because they did have plenty of time. They just, and remember, Ray Rodriguez has probably never been a showrunner before, didn't understand how to prioritize things or how to like be in this position. So I think it was just mismanagement, and a large part due to him, as well as terrible writing, also in a large part due to him. This is his baby. And I think that's, like, again, we don't know the full story. I would love to see, like, an interview with someone who worked on this project to get their opinion on this. And,
Oh,
like,
that's
see-
definitely gonna happen at some point.
I want
There's
it
no
so
way it
badly.
doesn't happen.
I want it so badly.
Whether it's like more mainstream or it's done by like
Or, like-
some anime VTuber or not
or, like,
VTuber,
Matt McMuscle.
YouTuber. I don't know
Like,
who that is.
He does a series called What Happened, which they do, I think, TV sometimes, but mainly it's video games. And that's how I know about the Anthem dumpster fire, because they do a lot of, like, they go through, like, researching interviews with a lot of video game dumpster fires. Like, they did an episode on Daikatana, Duke Nukem Forever, Dead Rising 4, and I would recommend this series to anyone who's interested in the video game industry, because it shows you a lot about the problems that studios face behind the scenes.
Dead Rising.
Dead Rising 4,
Gotcha.
which, as we all know, was bad, and the reason why it was bad was because they had to put it together haphazardly, because the project that they tried to pitch to Capcom did not go through.
What was the project that they tried to pitch?
I guess we can go on an off-topic tangent for a bit. Dead Rising was originally created by a studio called Blue Castle, based in Vancouver. And like they showed off the engine, they showed off all these zombies, and Capcom liked the idea, so like, you're hired. You are now Capcom Vancouver, and you are going to make a series of zombie games, which they called Dead Rising. And it was a smash hit. So they said, okay, make another one. So they did. Okay, make another one. Okay, by the way, you have all these IPs, Capcom, from like the 80s and 90s that you don't use. So here's a bunch of these ideas we had. No, we want you to make Dead Rising. Okay, well, here's a bunch of these original ideas we came up with. These really cool concepts and gameplay mechanics that haven't been explored. No, Dead Rising. So I can understandably, developers got tired of working on the same fucking game over and over. So what they tried to do with their own personal concept of Dead Rising 4 was it was going to be a complete overhaul reboot. From my understanding, it was going to be somewhat more like The Last of Us, where it's going to be a lot more gritty and stealth focused.
Mm-hmm.
And like the crafting would also be a lot less cartoony. And they showed the vertical slice to Capcom, and like after the collective picking up their jaws from the floor, they said, fucking no, you are going to make Dead Rising the way we want it. But by this point, because the thing is, when one video game is being wrapped up, when production is wrapping up, you already have to be on the next rung of the ladder. You already have to have something else in the pipeline. So the time they came up making all these original assets for a new and gritty looking world and like all these mechanics, that was just time wasted, and they had to throw it out, and they had to slap something together.
Just put them behind.
They had to slap something together, and Capcom did give them a deadline extension, but even then, it was not nearly enough, and the whole thing fell apart.
Gotcha.
So, like, it's interesting to see how these kinds of things unfold.
Well, anyway, back to how this relates to High Guardian Spice. So, I don't. Who would they interview? They would have to interview like the, what's his name? The like head director. What's
Well,
his name?
you mean Rodriguez?
Yes, Rodriguez. Like they'd
Well,
have to interview him.
I mean, he already put out Tumblr, like a Twitter thread about it, and I don't think he's the best person to do. I think you need multiple sides to this. I think like interviewing one of the animators would be a good idea, or like
The
one
head
of the
animator.
like, or maybe just an intern. I think would be good.
I mean, I guess I feel like that'd be like the last interview. Like if they do a series of interviews, I feel like it would
Like,
have to be
I feel like
Rodriguez, and
I
then
feel
it would
like
have to be like a head animator or like another storyboard writer, and then like some intern maybe.
yeah, I wouldn't make. I'd choose the writers very carefully, because one of the speculations is because you've seen the writing staff, you've seen Kate Leth and everyone else, the diverse cast of white female Tumblr stereotypes. One of the speculations is that the writing staff was probably the worst one you could have, because they never challenged the creator. They simply went along like yes men, and just, like a typical Tumblr circle jerk,
Yeah.
So without anyone to challenge or question the ideas, a lot of them just went through without a lot of thought. So you get plot holes, you get mixed messages.
You get magic systems that make no fucking sense.
Yeah. So it could be argued that interviewing the writers, you'd have to pick them very carefully, because they would have their own biases. Kate Leth, by the way, has already stated her 2 cents on the subject in a way that very much states, like, I'm washing my hands of this. I do not want to be a part of it. Because even after deleting the tweet saying #KillAllMen, which she made a lot of them. Actually, I think they were Tumblr posts, but that's besides the point. And after stating that she made those posts so her statement was that happened 8 years ago. By the way, she was making Kill All Men tweets up until 2018 when the show was first announced. But she was talking about, that was 8 years ago and I was Tumblr pilled. Which, okay, understandable. That was definitely a time where a lot of people were radicalized. Like, that was like peak Gamergate. But even then, people point out she never actually apologized or stated that these views were wrong. And she very much shifted the blame onto everyone else. So she's definitely not someone I'd interview at all. But
Maybe,
it would be.
Maybe.
Okay.
That's one.
I mean, it'd definitely be a unique take. You can't say it wouldn't be.
I don't know. I think
it'd be a unique view.
Assuming that the writing staff was all a bunch of yes men, I think all their takes would basically be the same. And this is why I'm hesitant about who in the writer staff I would interview. This is why I'm saying, like, an intern, maybe, because, like, they have less stake in it.
I guess.
Like, it's sort of like interviewing peasants about the state of the kingdom instead of the nobles who are, like, too, like, out of touch, I think is how I envision it. If that makes any sense.
You know who I would try to interview? The cleanup animators.
Assuming they even exist.
Assuming they have cleanup board animators, which because they have smear frames and everything, I assume so.
There's actually there's a 2-part series made by a couple of friends / artists who both happen to be trans. And it was their take on the series. But because they were artists and they had like experience in this idea, they were able to point out even the things that we missed. Like they pointed out that like there's one scene where you see the characters standing on a roof, and they were pointing out how the roof itself had no cleanup on it. Like it was still like sketched,
Oh
and like
yeah.
and they were baffled by this. Like it was something that it was hard to believe. Speaking of, I actually want to bring this up as well. And I guess this serves as an unintentional plug. Actually, I should say their name because this is another VTuber who, as far as I know, has no consent and doesn't know I'm talking about this.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know, maybe I shouldn't.
Then don't.
So
Is it something that you talked about privately or something that you talked about on stream?
it was something I mentioned to them in DMs.
Okay,
So,
then I
let's-
wouldn't talk about it.
Yeah, probably don't.
Anyway,
Okay, so-
so
I will say this. This is a VTuber who happens to be trans. And I specifically chose them because he is female to male, much like the show's creator and much like Calloway, and I showed him the infamous scene. And he admits, like, this isn't his strong suit. Like, we could be wrong about his analysis, but he didn't understand why the scene was so what the fuck.
so uncomfortable.
So, and I think this goes into an interesting realm, and he did say I could be wrong because I'm not like big into like writing. But he talked about how it would make sense that if Rose doesn't understand the concept of transgenderism, that it would be explained the way you would explain it to a child. Which, by the way, it should be noted, the main cast is 14.
Yeah.
If that's any indication of maturity. But and I thought about this, and it's like it is a realistic representation, but at the same time, like cartoons aren't real life, and they're not for reasons because real life is fucking boring.
It's called fucking fantasy.
It's not just that, it's also called you're not writing dialogue that's realistic, you're writing dialogue that can appeal to the fucking audience.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the explanation given, I could see that being on Sesame Street or Peppa Pig or some shit. Like, some, like, thing for preschoolers or, like, first graders, but by the time you reach 10 or 11, I think you don't need to focus on it that much and make it so literal and direct.
Definition.
Like, I think by that point, a child will understand allegories or understand reading between the lines. And actually, this is a good segue to another thing, which is who the hell was the target audience of the show?
Yeah.
Because remember,
Yeah.
at the beginning of
What
every
was the target
episode, we get the
audience?
disclaimer that no other show on Crunchyroll, no matter how adult it is, has. As far as I'm aware.
I honestly have no fucking clue. Because they go from, oh, this is a silly kids show, to, oh, we're seeing a rat get fucking dismantled.
Yeah, getting skeletonized.
And
in
then
acid.
like crab gore with realistic blood.
And
when
like the screams.
Crab's blood is
The screams. Oh god, those horrible screams.
Like, what the fuck?
So, and I
Who
did
the
mention
fuck?
this to you guys last night. I said Tumblr when we asked who was the show made for, and I said Tumblr.
Like an age
And-
range of like 16 to like 19.
No, specifically Tumblr. Like no age gap, just Tumblr, and like, and I mean this.
We're talking about age range, yeah.
But this, so okay, so here's the thing. Tumblr is a place that you know is very much a hug box. I mean, a lot of places on the internet are. Most social media is, and even 4chan is. I'll admit that it's kind of a hug box to an extent.
Yeah.
Like, it's at least you can't block people on 4chan, so you kind of have to deal with them. But it's still very much a circle jerk. But Tumblr is a circle jerk where they like very wholesome things. They're like very wholesome, cutesy things like Steven Universe. But it's also a place where it's not a very child-friendly place either. Well, it's more now because of the porn ban, but that's besides the point. Point is that people on that site are unafraid to say that they would resort to physical violence if someone disagreed with them politically. So these are people who like wholesome things, but they are also not above being edgy and being adult, especially in situations that are uncalled for, which is very important when you consider the tonal shift. So it's cutesy until it isn't, much like Tumblr. It's cutesy until they decide they want to be adult. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
fair enough.
So yeah, I think this show was made by and for Tumblr.
Yeah,
I think
that's fair enough, I guess.
So it's, and because it's like you can have adult animation, and like include adult themes, but they don't until very specific moments. And this is what one of the main criticisms, and we even touched upon this before we started this podcast, with the crab scene. It's like tonal whiplash is a word that is commonly used to describe it.
Yeah, it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, the scenes before have been wholesome, cutesy, like stuff. Sure, we had the rat scene, but that was one scene out of like so many. And then you just have this extremely violent show of subverting expectations. But it's not even far enough to where it can be like Madoka Magica levels. I mentioned.
Like, we mentioned Goblin Slayer as well, which is a good example of, I would say, tonal whiplash, which, while controversial, is still done better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because after the first episode, they don't do the rapiness that much. It comes up every now and then, but it's never as graphic as the first episode.
Yeah,
And
it was supposed to deck you in the face.
It was supposed to be there, I think, to set the tone of this is what you can expect. Like, it's sort of like how at the end of the first season of Game of Thrones, Ned Stark, who we all assume is the main protagonist, dies. It sets the tone for the rest of the series, and how everyone can easily be killed off. And that's the thing. One of the big memes about Game of Thrones throughout the entire series was like betting on who will die next. So it's like, it's subversion, but it's done in a way to like sort of smack you on the head to keep you focused and say, this will get real. It won't always get real, but we're telling you this now, like in the first episode, so that you understand shit's going to get real soon.
HGS,
and
they tried it. It just didn't come out well.
Because I think it's because they did it by episode 8, well after everything is like already established as being cutesy and child friendly, with a little bit of coarse language, and viewer discretion is advised.
Yeah, honestly. And going on that topic of dialogue, just some of the dialogue some of the voice acting just doesn't hit at all.
Deckhand.
No, I liked that insult.
I hated it.
I liked that insult. Or insult. Was it an insult? I don't know.
Actually, before we end the stream, I also want to talk about the things that everyone likes about the show, which is the side characters. We already mentioned Snapdragon way earlier.
Snapdragon.
We never talked about Amaryllis. We never talked about Nepicat. We never talked about Slime Boy that much.
Amaryllis started out as a fucking... I hated her. She was a ass. She was a bitch. And she had no, like, substance. But she slowly gained it. And she actually started becoming funny when she picked up the axe. She
gets better. Because, like, you start to see, like, in the next episode and the episode after, you start to see the dynamic between her and Snapdragon, and you start to see her as a friend, which also, by the way, kind of, the stereotype, men don't talk about their feelings, and it's different for men than it is with women. His best friend's a woman, and they have a tight bond, and you'll see that soon enough.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I liked her from the get-go, from the moment she said out of the way pores.
Pores. It seems like she was supposed to be Weiss, but not as good.
Like, you know what, she reminds me more of Rick Sanchez before anything else. It's like she's the fucking character. She just does not give a shit about her context. She's just her. She just says whatever she wants to assert her dominance.
I guess I could see that.
It's like she's mean to the main characters, but like, let's face it, the main characters have very little going on.
The main characters fucking deserve people to be mean to them.
So instead of, yeah, that's the thing.
Like Snapdragon's introduction was the fucking best. Like
it was.
Well, what's her name? Rosemary. Rosemary like draws a picture, hands it to him, and he's like, "Wow, you made this!" Crumbles it up and throws it in her face.
Like the expression
so
of his,
funny.
The expression of his is just so fucking hollow. It's like so hollow. It's like, wow. It's like, thanks. I hate this.
Yeah.
It's like
it was like you know when people laugh but they have a completely straight face and they just kind of stare at you.
Or
have you ever done that? Or it's ha ha ha, just like staring at you.
Or it's like very phoned in laughter. It's like, that's what that was. And like just by that smile, you could probably tell he was about to throw that back. But anyways, back to Amaryllis for a second, because she like I said, she's mean at first, but unlike you, I didn't find her like a character I hated at first. It's clear it's what they were going for, but that's the thing. When the main character, actually, this is a good point. All the characters are compared, and you could probably argue this for all fiction. All main characters end up being like, they are how do I explain this? Side characters are the satellites of the main character. They are mirrors that reflect specific ways based on the actions and reactions of the main cast.
Mm-hmm.
And so because the main cast is bland and annoying in a lot of cases, what appears to be an antagonist appears to be more like a satire character, like someone who's there to take the piss out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like, have you noticed that, like, in slasher films, like in Friday the 13th, you're rooting for the killer, aren't you? Because, like, the teenagers at that fucking camp are the most annoying shits.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's the thing. It's like the quote-unquote main cast are designed this way, and and like, you're supposed to like get the joy of seeing the kill. Like, it's the weird paradigm of slasher films. But I think it's a good analysis of this, or a good analogy, because again, these are characters you hate, so anything that should be like bad that happens to them, you actually like. It's a very interesting way of viewing it when you think about it.
I don't know. I think I just see Amaryllis as the Weiss character. Super pompous, super rich girl, super.
I do too, but like,
I feel like I'm biased because I'm comparing her to Weiss, when Weiss is just such a better character.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So Amaryllis is not a terrible character.
Like, here's the thing. Like, from the get-go, she comes up with the sickest burns. Like,
also 5-minute warning.
Oh yeah, like she comes up with like, she insults Rosemary's posture. It's like, like that. I don't know, something about that in particular is hilarious. Because it's like, I guess it's because it just comes out of nowhere. You don't think about the character's posture.
It's completely
like,
roasting.
It's like whenever she talks, it's like you're actually interested to know what she's gonna say, because it's always gonna be outrageous, but you don't know how.
I think that's the same thing with Time, just in a slightly different way.
Yeah, but in a more deadpan, dry humor sort of way.
Deadpan, dry humor, not entirely intentional way.
I am convinced
Amaryllis is entirely intentional.
Also, let's just wrap this up by saying any woman who brags about her lecherous sex life to her daughter is definitely based and is clearly asserting dominance as the matriarch of the family.
Oh my god, yeah.
Mm.
And Morellis' mom.
The
Never-
affairs.
What was that deckhand quote? She said she never met a deckhand that she didn't deck with her hand.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
so
you hated
stupid.
it, but I fucking love that line. It's
Like-
so funny.
It's definitely
Oh,
something
God.
I can see people quoting because of how stupid it is. Like, much in the same way that people quote Neo Yokio's incredibly stupid lines.
I mean, I told Finley I told Mandato the other day, fuck you don't get this big ass Toblerone.
Oh man, we didn't do it this year, but it's become a bit of a Christmas tradition to watch the Christmas episode of Neo Yokio.
My god.
And since we watched it, me and my brother give each other the biggest Toblerones we can get.
Toblerones are fucking expensive.
They're luxury chocolate.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, but 3 minutes left. By the
We
way,
we
I
haven't talked
apologize,
about the best character.
Slime Boy.
Parsley.
Man, yeah.
There's not
that's
much
the
to
thing.
say about Slime Boy at this point in the show. So Parsley. We've barely said anything about Parsley. And I don't know.
I mean,
it's just-
honestly, she's just there.
Parsley's there to be context. She's there to like explain things. She's there to
She's-
do the hard work. And
Yeah,
honestly, she's great. She's adorable. Her voice
she's an
acting's good.
Yeah, I think she deserves a lot more.
I
Like,
think she deserves to be in a different show.
so, by the way, I just want to apologize because I feel like I've been running this podcast. I've been taking us from one topic to another.
Like I said, don't tell me when we're off topic, all right, motherfucker.
Yeah, I do have to apologize for that.
Don't do that. I was gonna bring it up after the podcast, but no, this seems like a perfect time. Fuck you.
Like, I know I overstepped my bounds. At the same time, we were going on a tangent within a tangent.
Okay,
And
but if
I
I
was-
want to go on a tangent on my podcast, I'm gonna do it. All right, motherfucker.
Fair.
All right. If I want to talk about
don't-
fucking what's the most off topic, fucking the way pears shouldn't be crunchy. Like, if I want to talk about the way pears shouldn't be crunchy in a podcast about High Guardian Spice, I'm gonna do it. All right.
There is a window of ripeness when it comes to pears.
Exactly.
Like, a very narrow window where they're just soft enough without being too messy.
I like them juicy.
But yeah, all I'll
But
say is,
either way,
fair enough. It's your podcast. Just don't complain when I say, bro, we're not even through the topic and we're already over.
I don't give a fuck. But no, fucking Parsley. Parsley's just such a good character, and I get why you like her.
Like, I expect. Here's what I want to do. I want to pick her up like a baby, like under the armpits, and just hug her close to my chest, and I expect to hear a squeaky toy sound.
She would make a squeaky toy sound. And also, I have a friend. We talked earlier, and I did introduce them, but Dimension Eliana sounds exactly like Parsley. Or Parsley sounds exactly like her.
Well,
It's pretty
I would
funny.
say I'd say with the right inflection, if she
Mhm.
like deepens her voice enough, but she sounds a little too Shota.
Like a little too tomboyish.
Yeah. By the way, am I saying it
Yeah.
right? She, because you said they.
Huh?
Is it?
Oh, Eliana?
Yeah.
Oh, it's she. It's she.
Yeah. Okay.
Did I say
Because
that?
I heard they, and I'm like, oh shit, did I just misgender someone?
Nah, you're fine.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna fight her.
Are you gonna fight Eliana?
Yeah.
Why? What
I
Eliana
actually
say?
sent her a friend request. Like, I haven't seen her for that long, but she does seem
Because
like
I
someone
bond
I'd
over
really-
violence.
Fair enough.
That, and because I love the way she gets like flustered, and it's like, okay, this is someone I need to be friends with.
Oh, we bullied her a lot about it.
It was really funny.
First day we met, me and Oh, what's his name? Vampire dude? Raymond. Me and Raymond were
I
bullying
will say
her.
this: if I were
but,
to redesign High Guardian Spice, I would try to give Parsley a German accent and give her more of a German theme, just because Lederhosen.
Lederhosen is
Yeah, I guess.
very
I don't know.
cute.
I like her voice though. Her voice is cute.
Like, I do. It's like I like the voice, but with a different accent. Like, it's like I don't know. I don't see a lot of short stacks in Lederhosen. Like,
Mhm.
I think Lederhosen are underappreciated.
Just
I like how they made her a little bit buff.
Just
I
a
like how
li-
they made her a little bit built.
I mean, yeah, she's a dwarf.
I mean, yeah. But also her arms are thicker than the rest of the cast. Which
But
is
that's-
good because she's the strength character.
She literally smashes a boulder in 2 hits.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so any last remarks about anything? Either of you?
I apologize for trying to run your podcast.
Yes.
I feel like this is the second time I've done that.
Perhaps. I don't remember the first time. But
I don't know. I just
yes.
whenever I have a topic I like to talk about, it's just so hard
The
to.
Eclipse Phase podcast was a lot like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's just.
And
This is the thing.
I don't care about you like running the topic and like going off on your own tangents. But don't stop me from going on my tangents, man.
I know. I'm sorry. It's just. Yeah.
All right, as
Fair.
long as you get that.
Fair. Although, you did go on a tangent, and then I completely lost my train of thought.
Hey.
And that
It's
was
so
my
sad.
It's
that
just
was my
how it
pro-
is.
that was my prime. Like, this is why. If I had to explain why I'm being a dick, it's because, yeah, you. Sorry.
Losing train of thought, you know what?
Yeah.
It is what it is, man. You
Fair
gotta
enough,
go with the flow.
But this was
Gotta
definitely amazing. As always, if you ask, I will always be here.
anyway.
I will see you in the next video.
Yep, I gotta go sleep now.
Bye-bye.
All right, good night. Mandada,
So
you have
long,
any
Dave.
last notes?
My last note is that graphics cards are expensive.
That is true. Anyway, thank you for coming to the Degeneration Podcast, episode 35, the podcast for the Degenerate Generation. And I will see you guys next time.
Bye bye.
See you guys.
Oh.